Hey everyone, welcome to Pitching's Perspectives here on Inside the Mound with episode 1. I'm your host, Dylan Carroll, and with me today we have Stephen Cash, a left-handed pitcher from Louisiana Lafayette. How are you doing today, Stephen?
Doing great, Dylan. How are you?
I'm doing good. Quickly, before I talk about our first question, I'm going to throw your stats up on the screen. From here, I want you to talk about what you would attribute your success to early on this season compared to your last year's numbers.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest difference for me is I've changed a lot from last year. I've changed where I stand, changed my arm action. So I'm pretty much a whole new pitcher than I was last year, and that's what's gotten me to my success early on this year.
And what made me want to put together and get you on this podcast is I saw you opening weekend against Wright State, and I saw you coming out of the bullpen. I was watching that game, and it was a crucial situation. It was the latter half of the game, probably 6th, 7th, 8th maybe. And I think there was multiple runners in scoring position, or there was definitely multiple base runners. And you came in, there was a lefty coming up. You come in out of the pen. I knew they were probably going to lefty, and then probably punched the guy out on maybe three or four pitches. And I was like, man, that kid's got something that's different. It's unique. It's a weird delivery. It's a different slot. And I'm like, he's got a chance to be really good. And then I saw them not roll you back out the next inning, and I'm like, okay, they're definitely knowing what they have. Like, there's something here, and we want to use this piece of the puzzle to piece together Saturday and Sunday's game as well against some left-handed hitters. So I knew they had something there, and I knew you were going to be interesting and fun to watch throughout the course of this season. Let's get into question number 2, which is 2023, you were heavy with the fastball usage. And so far this season, it's been heavy off speed. So it's a complete kind of 180 of what you had going on a year ago. Last year, you were at 69% fastball usage, and right now you were at 44%. So that's sitting under 50% of the time you're throwing fastballs. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so last year my off speed was pretty average, and my fastball was not hit very well, so we just kind of stuck with the fastball. And then I've developed 2 new pitches, so really my off speed's better than my fastball now.
All right, next question. I have here, you have a clip from 2023. This is at y'all's regional in Coral Gables. And then on 2024, this is at the Shriners College Classic earlier this season. The biggest things that stood out to me was the slot is severely different. 2023, it's a more traditional over-the-top slot. 2024 is completely different. It's way lower. And then the other thing I saw, I wasn't completely sure if I saw this correct. I knew you weren't in the same position on the mound, but I didn't know if in 2023 you were on the third base side of the rubber or the middle of the rubber. And I see in 2024 you're severe first base side of the rubber.
Yeah, so in 23 I was on the third base side of the rubber. And then, this year I'm about a half a foot off towards the first base side.
What made you make that change? Or did somebody tell you to do that? Or did you think of doing that? Like, how did that all come about?
So this fall, I would start. So on righties, I would stay on the right side like last year. And then lefties, I would go to the left side. But then it was kind of just too much throwing from 2 different. So I just probably about 2 weeks before the season, I went exclusively from the first base side of the rubber, because lefties were all telling me like it's so hard to pick up from it's starting way behind me and all that, and then I just wanted to stay on that side even with the righties just to make it a lot more similar instead of having to worry about throwing from 2 different spots on the mound.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people trying to, because I mean, who did it? Paul Skeens last year for LSU. I know he was first base side, third base side, and going back and forth. It can be helpful for some people, especially creating different angles to help that secondary pitch that you like to play so much. It's definitely different to different hitters. You're trying to create that approach angle.
Right.
Next question I want to get into is your fastball preference and your grip. Are you throwing sinkers, 2 seams, 4 seams, 1 seam? What fastball are you using?
Yeah, I throw a 4 and a 2. I usually, if it's glove side, I prefer 4 seam. Arm side, I go 2 seam. But if I'm behind the count, probably just a 4 seam. I throw a 4 seam, just traditional 4 seam, and then the 2 seam just straight over. I mean, pretty traditional stuff.
On your two seam, are you getting just a ton of arm side run and not a lot of sink, or does it vary at times? Like sometimes you'll get a ton of sink and it doesn't run as much arm side.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it'll go straight down, sometimes it'll have run. It's different every time, really.
Gotcha. That's why probably typically when you're behind in the count, you kind of want to go to that forward just because
Right.
I know what the ball is going to do out of my hand.
Right, for sure.
The next question is we're going to go into your secondary pitches that have been so good for you this year. We're going to go into the slider first. So,
okay. Yeah, so that's the slider there, and then that's the curve there. So they're very similar. They're just about
gotcha.
4 or 5 miles an hour difference. And
Yeah,
it's
because
just so
that's what I had here.
If
Is
he's
I
on
had
time
that,
for
I mean, last year you
Yeah.
were throwing sliders at 73, this year 77.5. So it's definitely ticked up for you a bit, which has increased your last year. I mean, you had good whiff on your slider last year. It was 33%, which is good. But this year, I mean, it's 57%. It's way higher. Not even in the same round. The changeup. You want to talk about the changeup real quick?
Yeah, changeup. It's the same grip I've had for a while. It's two seam changeup. I'd say the biggest thing on that this year is I'm a lot more consistent with it. It's hard on righties. It's my go-to pitch on righties. And just
here's a couple here at Wright State. There were two of my favorites that you threw that since I was watching some of the videos, and I was like, man, these are two really, really good ones right here. But you want to show us a grip?
Yeah, it's just a traditional two-seam grip. And I really just think throw the middle finger down because it's more up and down than your traditional fade changeup being from my arm slot.
Got you. So you're pronating that changeup, right? You're trying to manipulate it.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
I put out a little thread or whatever recently on changeups, talking about like how there's different changeups for different people depending on what they're good at. Are you good at supinating? Or are you good at pronating? Or if you're good at neither, you probably just need to go to a split or something like that. And I've kind of dealt with pitchers on all different sides of the spectrum. I've dealt with some supinators, some pronators, and I dealt with some guys that can't do neither. That just and they end up just going to split.
For sure. I mean, I'm a heavy pronate guy, but we have tons of guys on our team that throw just a traditional split, and we have. I don't even know if there's anybody that throws the same grip on a changeup on our team.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance, and it really doesn't matter. It's all about just getting the shape that you're looking for. And with the splits, I mean, it's a very dummified version of a changeup. You don't have to have a lot of feel to throw a splitter. Now, it takes a lot of rep because it's a very low end zone percentage pitch to throw for a strike. But as far as manipulating the baseball or anything like that, you don't have to. It's just let the grip do its thing and just cut that thing loose. Can you share the insights about your training regimen throughout the week, getting ready for a weekend, your throwing workloads, lifting workloads?
Typically, I'll lift on a Monday being our off day, and then usually on a Thursday. That's if I'm pitch. That would be because I usually pitch a midweek, and then I also need to be ready for the weekend. And then the lifts will be lighter, just so I'm not too sore for the games or whatever. And then throwing wise, if I'm hot that day, I usually stay 120 to 90, and then I try to long toss at least once a week, just to get the arm back under me again. And usually I'll do that. Say if we play on Tuesday, I'll long toss on a Wednesday and have a day of kind of recovery on Thursday and then be ready again for Friday.
And will they let you know kind of going into a midweek game whether you're available today or you're not available today?
Yeah, they do a good job of that. I mean, some days it'll be like you might be emergency today, or midweeks we schedule out a little bit more than the weekends, so it's kind of set. And but there's always emergency arms available.
You've done it this year because I haven't thought about this, but have you gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday out of the pen yet?
No, I haven't, not yet. It probably will happen eventually.
I was about to say, are you prepared to do that? That's the question.
Oh, I would love to do that. I'd pitch every day if they'd let me.
Next question I have is, how do you approach going into the weekend mentally, knowing that you're in the bullpen and you kind of don't know when your number is going to be called? And how do you approach it physically too, like preparing for it, because most college arms coming into college, they at a high school, in high school, you were your best pitcher on your team more than likely. So you were a starter, you were throwing once a week, and you kind of knew your weekly schedule, knew what day you were starting. And now it's kind of a complete 180 where I don't know how many games I'm going to pitch in this week. I don't know what games, when, anything like that.
Yeah. So mentally, it's just the be ready every day mentality. I mean, I don't, starters usually have their routines. I mean, I have routines, but at the same time, I don't try to be too strict on them because being out of the bullpen, you could be 5 pitches away from going in the game. If you can't be so mental on yourself where if I don't do this, I'm not going to be able to perform, that kind of stuff. So I just stick to feelings, and then on the days you don't feel great, that's when the mental side of it takes over, and you're just out there to compete.
If coach calls down to the pen, say, "Hey, get hot," what are we doing?
Yeah, usually Yeah, so I stretch throughout the whole game just to stay loose, and then I keep my lower body loose throughout the whole game. So once I go to the pen, really all I have to do is get my arm loose. So I'll do plyos, not even really the same thing every time. Usually some reverse throws, and then just throw in a little heavier ball. And then once I get on the mound, I like to throw a softball as well, just have something a little heavier than a baseball. So I'll throw that a few times before. And then once I pick up a baseball, it's usually go time. So I usually have about 8 pitches for it's time to go in the game.
Do you have any pregame rituals? Because I know a lot of lefties, man, y'all are weird. Okay, a lot of left-handed pitchers, y'all do some weird stuff. Trust me, I played with some. And do you have any rituals or things you do before a game or before a weekend or anything that's maybe unique?
Not really. I mean, the only thing I'd say as kind of pregame ritual, I'll do like the same. My first 3 stretches of the day are the same every day. But besides that, everything's a day-by-day basis. So what I'll do is the first thing I do, I'll walk to center field and walk back. And then I get in a prayer during that time. And then once I get back, I do a jog to about 90 feet and back. And then I do karaoke down and back. And that's the same. I do those every day. And then after that, it depends on the day.
Last question we'll get into is kind of what aspect of your game right now do you feel like you still need to improve upon to help your team get to a regional, win a regional, and then move further along in this baseball season?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me right now is cutting down the walks and hit by pitches. That's probably been if I just stay out of that, my numbers could be better than they are right now. I mean, I have way too many walks, but the strikeouts are up and the hits are down. So,
all right, Steven.
For sure.
Well, all right, guys, that's going to be it for episode 1. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Steven and gained some valuable insights about what went into his development. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more player interviews. And thank y'all for joining us.